The cards fell on the whiskey-stained table, and Magdalena Everett's fate was sealed with a full house that belonged to a man she had never met. She stood in the corner of the Silver Spur Saloon in San Pedro, California, her hands trembling as she watched her stepfather Lawrence Daniels rake in his winnings from every man at the table except one. The rancher across from him, a tall man with sun-weathered skin and eyes the color of storm clouds, had laid down 4 aces. The entire saloon had gone quiet, the piano player's fingers frozen above the keys. "I ain't got the cash," Lawrence said, his voice thick with whiskey and desperation. It was April 1876, and the gold rush had long since faded, leaving men like Lawrence scrambling for any opportunity to strike it rich. "But I got something worth more than gold." Magdalena's stomach dropped. She knew what was coming before the words left his mouth. "My stepdaughter. She is 20 years old, strong as an ox, cooks better than any woman in 3 counties, and she will work off my debt." The rancher's gray eyes lifted, finding Magdalena in the shadows. She stood frozen, her dark hair pulled back in a simple braid, her calico dress faded but clean. Her mother had died 2 winters ago, and Lawrence had been drinking away what little money they had ever since. "You cannot sell a woman," the rancher said, his voice low and steady. "I am not selling her. I am offering her services as payment. She will work for you until the debt is cleared. $500 worth of work." The other men at the table shifted uncomfortably. Even in a rough town like San Pedro, there were lines that decent men did not cross. But Lawrence Daniels had crossed every line months ago, and everyone knew it. The rancher stood slowly, his chair scraping against the wooden floor. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders and hands that looked capable of both building and breaking. His clothes were simple but well made, his boots dusty from a long ride. "I will take your offer," he said quietly, "but only to spare her from whatever worse fate you would arrange." Lawrence's face split into a grin, relief flooding his features. "Excellent. Her name is Magdalena. She will serve you well, Mr. Morgan, Lucas Morgan." The name meant something in these parts. Magdalena had heard it before in the general store, in church, in whispered conversations between the townswomen. Lucas Morgan owned the largest cattle ranch in San Luis Obispo County, thousands of acres stretching from the valley floor up into the hills. He was known as a fair man, hard but honest, the kind of rancher who paid his workers on time and never cheated anyone. But that did not change the fact that she was being traded like a horse or a sack of grain. Lucas Morgan walked toward her, his boots thudding against the floorboards. Up close, she could see the lines around his eyes, the silver threading through his dark hair. He was perhaps 35, maybe 40, but his eyes held something ancient and tired. "Miss Everett," he said, his voice gentle despite his rough exterior, "gather your things. We leave at first light." "I have nothing to gather," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Pride kept her chin up, kept her shoulders back. She would not give Lawrence the satisfaction of seeing her cry. "Then we leave now." He turned to Lawrence, who was already counting the money from the pot. "Consider your debt paid, Daniels. If I ever see you near my ranch or near Miss Everett again, you will regret it." The threat hung in the air, simple and absolute. Lawrence barely looked up, too focused on his winnings to care that he had just traded away the last person who gave a damn whether he lived or died. Magdalena followed Lucas Morgan out of the saloon into the cool night air. San Pedro was a small coastal town, salty air mixing with the scent of horses and dust. The street was mostly empty, just a few drunks stumbling between establishments. A beautiful chestnut mare stood tied at the hitching post, along with a sturdy gelding. Lucas untied both horses and turned to Magdalena. "Can you ride?" Yes. Good. The ranch is a day's journey north. We will stop halfway to rest the horses. He helped her mount the gelding, his hands respectful, never lingering or taking liberties. Then he swung up onto his mare with the easy grace of a man who had spent his life in the saddle. They rode in silence through the darkened streets, leaving San Pedro behind. Magdalena did not look back. There was nothing for her in that town anymore, nothing but memories of her mother and the slow deterioration of the only home she had ever known. The moon was full overhead, casting silver light across the landscape. They followed a well-worn trail north, the sound of hoofbeats and night birds the only companions. Magdalena's mind raced with questions, but she kept them to herself. What did this man expect from her? What kind of work would she be doing? And what would happen when the debt was paid? After several hours, Lucas guided them off the main trail to a small grove of oak trees. A creek ran nearby, the sound of water over stones soothing in the darkness. "We will rest here," he said, dismounting. He helped her down from the gelding, then set about unsaddling both horses and setting up a simple camp. Magdalena watched him work, efficient and practiced. He built a small fire, laid out bedrolls on opposite sides of the flames, and pulled dried meat and hardtack from his saddlebags. "You should eat," he said, offering her food. She took it mechanically, her appetite gone but knowing she needed her strength. They ate in silence, the fire crackling between them. Finally, she could not hold back anymore. "What do you expect from me, Mr. Morgan?" He looked up from his meal, his gray eyes reflecting the firelight. "I expect nothing. But Lawrence said I would work off his debt. $500 is a lot of money." "It is." He set down his food and leaned back against a fallen log. "But I did not win you to own you, Miss Everett. I won you to free you." She stared at him, confusion knitting her brow. "I do not understand. When we reach my ranch tomorrow, you will have a choice. You can work for me if you want, and I will pay you fair wages like any other worker. You can stay in the house in a room of your own with meals and safety. Or you can take one of my horses and ride wherever you want to go. I will give you enough money to get started somewhere new. The choice is yours." Tears pricked her eyes, but she blinked them back. "Why would you do that?" "You just paid $500. Because no person should be bought or sold. What your stepfather did was wrong, and I will not be part of it." He paused, his expression softening. "My mother was sold once, a long time ago. Different circumstances, but the same principle. A man with money thought he could own her because her father owed him a debt. Someone helped her then. I am helping you now." The tears came despite her efforts to stop them, silent tracks down her cheeks. She wiped them away quickly, embarrassed to show such weakness in front of a stranger. "What happened to your mother?" she asked quietly. "She met my father. He was a ranch hand with nothing but a good heart and strong back. He married her and spent 20 years building the ranch I have now. They are both gone, but they taught me what matters in life. Money is not one of those things." Magdalena looked into the fire, her mind spinning. She had expected so many terrible things when Lawrence had spoken those words in the saloon, but kindness had never entered her calculations. "I would like to work for you," she said finally. "If the offer is genuine. I have nowhere else to go and I am a hard worker." "The offer is genuine. You will earn $30 a month plus room and board. You will help my housekeeper, Maria, with the cooking and household management. The work is hard but fair, and you will be treated with respect." $30 a month was more than most women could hope to earn. It was honest work, honest wages. "Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Call me Lucas. We do not stand on formality at the ranch. Then you should call me Magdalena." He smiled for the first time, and it transformed his face from stern to almost handsome. "Get some rest, Magdalena. We have a long ride tomorrow." She settled onto the bedroll he had laid out, her body exhausted even if her mind still raced. Across the fire, Lucas checked the horses one more time before lying down himself. He kept his gun belt on, she noticed, his hand never far from the weapon. Protection, she realized. He was watching out for her safety even now. Sleep came slowly, but when it did, it was deeper and more peaceful than any rest she had found in months. Morning came with birdsong and the smell of coffee. Lucas had already rekindled the fire and was heating water in a small pot. He handed her a tin cup of the strong brew, along with more hardtack and some dried apples. "The ranch is about 6 hours from here if we keep a good pace," he said. "How are you with the saddle? Any soreness?" "I am fine," she assured him. In truth, her legs ached a bit, but it was nothing she could not handle. She had worked hard her whole life, and a little discomfort was not going to stop her now. They broke camp quickly and set out again, the morning sun warming the landscape. The terrain changed as they rode north, from coastal scrubland to rolling hills covered in golden grass. Cattle dotted the hillsides, sturdy longhorns bearing the Morgan brand. "Your land?" Magdalena asked. "Part of it. The ranch covers about 8,000 acres. We run around 2,000 head of cattle, plus horses." It was difficult to imagine that much space, that much responsibility. "How many people work for you?" "About 20 hands, depending on the season, more during roundup and branding. Then there is Maria and her husband Diego who help run the house and manage supplies. And now you." They rode past groups of cattle, past lined shacks where ranch hands stayed during their rotations watching the herds. Several men waved at Lucas, their eyes curious when they saw Magdalena but respectful enough not to stare. By midday, they crested a hill and Magdalena got her first view of the Morgan ranch. The main house was built of wood and stone, 2 stories with a wide porch wrapping around the front. Several outbuildings dotted the property, including a large barn, a bunkhouse, a smokehouse, and various storage sheds. Cottonwood trees provided shade, and a well-maintained garden stretched out behind the main house. It was beautiful in a rugged, practical way. Everything looked sturdy and well cared for, built to last. "Home," Lucas said simply, and she could hear the pride in his voice. They rode down to the main house, and before they had even dismounted, a woman came bustling out the front door. She was perhaps 50, with silver-streaked black hair pulled into a bun and warm brown eyes that took in everything at once. "Lucas Morgan, you did not tell me you were bringing home a guest," she scolded in accented English, her hands on her hips. "It is a long story, Maria. This is Magdalena Everett. She will be staying with us and helping you with the household work. Magdalena, this is Maria Reyes, the woman who actually runs this ranch no matter what anyone else thinks." Maria's sharp eyes studied Magdalena, and whatever she saw must have satisfied her because her expression softened. "You look exhausted, girl. Come inside. I will make you something proper to eat, and then you can have a bath and rest." Lucas handed the horses off to a young ranch hand who had appeared from the barn. "Take care of them, Tommy. They have had a long journey." "Yes, sir, Mr. Morgan." Inside, the house was comfortable if not fancy. The furniture was solid and practical, but there were touches of warmth everywhere. Curtains on the windows, a colorful rug on the floor, books on shelves, and photographs on the walls. It felt like a home, not just a house. Maria led Magdalena upstairs to a small bedroom. It had a real bed with a quilt, a dresser, a washstand, and a window that looked out over the ranch. After sleeping on a thin mattress in a drafty room at Lawrence's house, it seemed like a palace. "This is your room," Maria said. "I will bring up hot water so you can wash. Then come down to the kitchen and eat. You are skin and bones, girl. We need to put some meat on you." Left alone, Magdalena sat on the edge of the bed and finally allowed herself to feel the full weight of the last 24 hours. She had been sold to settle a gambling debt by the man who was supposed to protect her. She had been won by a stranger, and that stranger had given her freedom and a job and kindness when he could have demanded so much worse. She did not know what to make of Lucas Morgan. He was gruff and quiet, but there was a decency in him that shone through every action. He could have taken advantage of the situation in 100 different ways, but instead, he had offered her choices. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts, and Maria entered with a pitcher of steaming water. "The tub is down the hall," she said. "Take your time. Dinner will not be for a few hours yet, so rest if you need it." "Thank you, Maria, for your kindness." The older woman paused at the door, her expression knowing. Lucas is a good man, even if he is too stubborn to see it himself. "Whatever brought you here, you are safe now. That is all that matters." After bathing and changing into a simple dress that Maria had provided, Magdalena felt almost human again. She found her way downstairs to the kitchen, drawn by the smell of cooking food. Lucas sat at the large wooden table, papers spread out before him. He looked up when she entered, and she saw approval in his eyes. "You look better. Did Maria take good care of you?" "She did. Thank you for the room. It is more than I expected. It is just a room." He shuffled his papers together. "Tomorrow Maria will show you around and explain your duties. For today, just rest and get your bearings. Diego will return from town in a few days, and you will meet him then." Maria appeared with plates of food, beef stew thick with vegetables, fresh bread, and butter. They ate together at the table, and gradually the tension in Magdalena's shoulders began to ease. "Tell me about the ranch," she said. "How long have you been running it?" "My father bought the original 1,000 acres 25 years ago. He built it up slowly, adding land when he could, improving the herd. When he died 5 years back, it came to me. I have been expanding since then, trying to build something lasting." "You have family, brothers or sisters?" "No, just me. My mother could not have more children after I was born. They poured all their love and hopes into this ranch and into raising me right." He paused, a shadow crossing his face. "I hope I have made them proud." "I think they would be," Magdalena said softly. "From what I have seen, you are a good man." He looked uncomfortable with the praise, changing the subject quickly. "What about you? Your mother passed, you said, 2 years ago. Fever took her in the winter. Lawrence was a neighbor who offered to marry her when my father died. I was only 15 then, and Mama thought she was giving me security. But Lawrence changed after she died. The drinking got worse, the gambling. He stopped caring about anything except the next game, the next bottle. I am sorry. You deserved better." They fell into comfortable silence, finishing their meal. Maria brought out dried apple pie, and Magdalena ate until she was truly full for the first time in weeks. That night, lying in her comfortable bed with a full stomach and the sound of crickets drifting through the window, Magdalena felt something she had not experienced in a long time: hope. The next days fell into a rhythm. Maria showed her the workings of the household, and Magdalena threw herself into the tasks with determination. She helped with cooking, cleaning, laundry, and maintaining the large garden that provided much of their vegetables. The work was hard but satisfying, and Maria was patient teacher. Lucas was often gone during the day, riding out to check on the herds, meeting with his ranch hands, handling the 1,000 details that came with running such a large operation. But he took his meals with them when he was home, and slowly Magdalena began to learn more about the man who had freed her. He was educated, she discovered. His mother had insisted he learn to read and write properly, and his father had taught him mathematics and business. He read books in the evening, everything from Shakespeare to agricultural journals. He was patient with his workers, firm but never cruel, and he had a dry sense of humor that caught her by surprise, making her laugh when she least expected it. Diego returned from town, a stocky man in his 50s with a ready smile and gentle manner. He managed the horses and handled supply runs, and he clearly adored his wife Maria. Watching them together, the easy affection and partnership, made Magdalena long for something she had never really had. 2 weeks after arriving at the ranch, Magdalena was hanging laundry when Lucas rode up leading a beautiful gray mare. "You have a moment," he called. She set down the basket and walked over, admiring the horse. "She is beautiful. She is yours if you want her. I noticed you have been staying close to the house, but you should feel free to ride the property. It is your home now, too." Magdalena reached out to stroke the mare's soft nose, and the horse nuzzled her hand gently. "Mine, part of your wages. Every worker gets a horse. This is Moonlight. She is gentle but has spirit. I think you two will suit each other." Tears threatened again, but this time Magdalena did not fight them. "Thank you, Lucas. You have given me so much." He dismounted and stood beside her, close enough that she could smell leather and sage and something uniquely him. "You have earned it. Maria tells me you work harder than 3 women, and the ranch hands say the food has never been better. Maria does most of the cooking, but you help, and you bring something special to it. This is your home, Magdalena. I want you to feel that." She looked up at him, really looked at him, and saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. It was not just kindness or friendship. There was something deeper there, something that made her heart beat faster. "Would you teach me to rope?" she asked suddenly. "I can ride, but I never learned the ranch skills." A slow smile spread across his face. "I would be happy to. Tomorrow after breakfast." "Tomorrow," she agreed. That night, lying in bed, Magdalena admitted to herself what had been growing quietly in her heart. She was falling in love with Lucas Morgan. It was probably foolish. He was her employer, the man who had saved her from a terrible fate. He probably saw her as nothing more than a worker, maybe a friend, but her heart did not care about logic. It cared about the way he looked at her when he thought she was not watching. It cared about his kindness, his strength, his quiet dignity. It cared about the man he was, not the debt that had brought them together. The next morning dawned clear and beautiful. After breakfast, Lucas took her out to the corral with Moonlight and his own mare. He showed her how to hold the rope, how to build a loop, how to swing and release. She was clumsy at first, but he was patient, his hands guiding hers, his voice steady and encouraging. "Like this," he said, standing behind her, his arms around her as he helped her swing the rope. "Feel the weight of it, the rhythm." She could barely concentrate with him so close, but she tried to focus on the lesson. After an hour of practice, she managed to rope a fence post twice in a row. "Excellent," Lucas praised, genuine pleasure in his voice. "You are a natural. I have a good teacher." They practiced for another hour before Lucas declared it was enough for the first day. They walked the horses to cool them down, side by side in the warm sunshine. "Can I ask you something?" Magdalena said, "Anything. Why have you never married? A man like you with all this, I would think you would want someone to share it with." He was quiet for a long moment, and she worried she had overstepped. But finally he spoke. "I was engaged once. Her name was Sarah. She was beautiful and educated, the daughter of a banker in San Francisco. But when she came here and saw the ranch, saw the reality of this life, she realized she could not do it. She wanted fancy parties and city life, not dust and cattle. She was a fool." Lucas laughed, the sound surprising and warm. "Maybe, but she was honest about what she wanted, and I respected that. Since then, I have not found anyone who wanted this life, who understood what it meant to build something lasting." "I understand it," Magdalena said quietly. He stopped walking and turned to face her. I know you do. That is one of the things I have come to admire about you, her heart hammered in her chest. Admire, Magdalena, I need to be honest with you. These past few weeks, having you here, watching you become part of this place, I have felt something I have not felt in years. Maybe something I have never really felt before. She could barely breathe. What are you saying? I am saying that I am falling in love with you. I know the circumstances of how you came here are complicated. I know you might not feel the same way, but I needed you to know the truth. Joy burst through her chest like sunrise. Lucas Morgan, I have been falling in love with you since the moment you told me I was free to make my own choices. Every day since then has just made it stronger. He reached out and cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing her cheek. You are sure? This is not gratitude or feeling obligated, I am sure. What I feel for you has nothing to do with the circumstances that brought me here and everything to do with the man you are. He kissed her then, soft and sweet, a question and an answer all at once. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. So what happens now? She asked. Now we take our time. We court properly. I want to do this right, Magdalena. You deserve to be wooed, not rushed into something because of where we have been. I would like that. They walked back to the house hand in hand, and when Maria saw them, her face broke into a knowing smile. Finally, she muttered in Spanish. I was wondering how long it would take for you two to see what was obvious to everyone else. The next months were the happiest of Magdalena's life. Lucas courted her properly, with walks in the evening, reading together by the fire, and long rides across the ranch where he showed her every corner of the land he loved. He told her his dreams for the future, his plans to expand the herd, his hope to build schools and churches in the county. She told him about her mother, about the happy years before her father died, about her dreams of having a family of her own someday. They talked about everything and nothing, learning each other in the way that lovers do. He was always respectful, always proper. He kissed her goodnight on the porch but never pushed for more. He wanted her to be sure, wanted them both to be sure. By the time autumn arrived, painting the hills in shades of gold and amber, Magdalena knew with absolute certainty that she wanted to spend the rest of her life with Lucas Morgan. One evening in October, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Lucas took her hand. Magdalena Everett, you have brought light into my life that I never knew was missing. You have made this house a home in ways I cannot fully express. I love you with everything I am, and I promise to honor and cherish you every day for the rest of my life. He pulled out a simple gold ring, elegant in its simplicity. Will you marry me? Yes, she said, tears streaming down her face. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her as the sun dipped below the hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and gold. They were married in November in the small church in San Pedro, with Maria and Diego as witnesses, and most of the town in attendance. Magdalena wore a simple white dress that Maria had helped her sew, and Lucas wore his best suit, looking both uncomfortable and handsome. As they said their vows, promising to love and honor each other, Magdalena thought about that night in the saloon when her life had seemed to end. She had been so afraid then, so certain that she was heading into darkness, but Lucas had given her light. He had given her freedom, and then he had given her the choice to stay. And she had chosen him, chosen this life, chosen love. The reception was held at the ranch, with tables set up under the cottonwood trees and food enough to feed half the county. The ranch hands played fiddles and guitars, and there was dancing until late in the night. When they finally retreated to the house, to the master bedroom that Lucas had prepared for them, Magdalena felt both nervous and excited. We can take this slow, Lucas said gently, reading her expression. "There is no rush. I am not afraid," she said, and it was true. "I trust you completely." He kissed her then, deep and passionate, and they came together as husband and wife, creating something beautiful and sacred between them. The winter passed in a haze of contentment. They settled into married life with an ease that felt natural, as if they had always been meant to find each other. Lucas taught Magdalena more about running the ranch, involving her in decisions and respecting her opinions. She proved to have a good head for business, suggesting innovations that improved efficiency and saved money. Spring brought new calves and the busy season of branding and moving herds to fresh pasture. Magdalena rode out with Lucas sometimes, watching him work with his men, seeing the respect they had for him as a boss and as a man. By summer, she suspected she might be pregnant, though she said nothing until she was certain. When she finally told Lucas over dinner one evening, his face transformed with joy. "A baby. We are going to have a baby, in February, I think. Are you happy?" He pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "Happy does not even begin to describe it. You have given me everything, Magdalena, everything I never knew I needed." The pregnancy progressed smoothly, though Maria fussed over her like a mother hen. Lucas was protective but not overbearing, making sure she did not overwork herself but still respecting her need to be useful. They spent the long winter evenings planning for the baby, talking about names and dreams and what kind of parents they wanted to be. "I want them to know they are loved," Magdalena said one night, her hand resting on her swollen belly. "I want them to grow up feeling safe and valued." "They will," Lucas promised. "We will make sure of it." The baby came during a cold snap in February, a long, difficult labor that had Lucas pacing the floor downstairs, while Maria and a midwife from town attended Magdalena. When the first cries finally rang out, Lucas burst into the room, his face desperate with worry. "A son," Maria announced, placing the squalling baby in Magdalena's arms. "You have a healthy son." Lucas sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his newborn child with wonder. "He is perfect," he whispered. "You are perfect." They named him Thomas Everett Morgan after Magdalena's father. Tommy, they called him, and he had his father's gray eyes and his mother's dark hair. Watching Lucas with their son, Magdalena felt her heart might burst with love. He was a devoted father, patient and gentle, changing diapers without complaint and walking the floor at night when Tommy fussed. "I never thought I could be this happy," she told him one night as they watched their sleeping son. "Neither did I," Lucas replied, pulling her close. "You and Tommy are my whole world." The years that followed were full and rich. Tommy grew into a bright, curious boy who loved following his father around the ranch. 2 years after Tommy, they had a daughter they named Catherine Marie, with golden hair and a laugh that could light up the darkest day. And 3 years after that, another son, James Lucas, who had his father's quiet strength even as a baby. The ranch prospered under their management. Lucas expanded the operation, buying more land and improving the herd. But he never forgot the lessons his parents had taught him about treating people fairly and building something that mattered. Magdalena became a pillar of the community, organizing church socials and helping new families who settled in the area. She never forgot where she had come from, and she made sure to help other women who found themselves in difficult situations. One day, about 10 years after that fateful night in the saloon, a young woman showed up at their door. She was thin and scared, running from a husband who beat her. Without hesitation, Magdalena took her in, gave her work, and eventually helped her get a divorce and start a new life. "You did not have to do that," the woman said tearfully. "You do not even know me." "Someone helped me once when I needed it most," Magdalena replied. "Now I am passing that gift forward." Lucas watched his wife with pride, seeing the strong, compassionate woman she had become. The frightened girl he had freed from that saloon was gone, replaced by someone who knew her own worth and used her strength to help others. They heard about Lawrence Daniels occasionally over the years. He had gambled away everything and ended up working odd jobs for whiskey money. Magdalena felt pity for him, but nothing more. He was part of a past that no longer had power over her. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Lucas took Magdalena up into the hills overlooking the ranch. They sat on a blanket, watching the sun set over land they had built together. "You remember that night in San Pedro?" he asked. "Every detail. I was so scared." "I was angry," Lucas admitted. "Angry that someone would treat another person that way, but also grateful, because it brought you to me. I used to wonder what would have happened if you had not been in that saloon that night. What if someone else had won the hand? Do not think about that. We found each other, and that is what matters." She leaned against his shoulder, content. Below them, the ranch spread out like a patchwork quilt. She could see the main house where their children were probably helping Maria with dinner, the barn where their horses were stabled, the bunkhouse where the ranch hands lived, the land they had nurtured and grown. "I love you, Lucas Morgan," she said. "Thank you for giving me freedom. Thank you for giving me the choice to stay. And thank you for choosing me," he replied, kissing her softly. "For choosing this life, for choosing us." As they sat together in the fading light, Magdalena thought about fate and choice and love. She had been sold to settle a bet, won by a man she did not know. But that man had said 4 simple words that changed everything. "Now you are free." And in that freedom, she had found something far more precious than she ever imagined possible. She had found home. She had found purpose. She had found love in its truest, deepest form. The years continued to pass with the gentle rhythm of ranch life. Tommy grew into a young man with his father's sense of justice and his mother's compassionate heart. At 18, he was already proving himself capable of running parts of the ranch operation. Catherine, at 16, was beautiful and fierce, determined to attend the new teachers' college that had opened in San Francisco. James, at 13, was the dreamer of the family, always with his nose in a book or sketching the horses. Magdalena and Lucas watched their children grow with the kind of quiet pride that comes from knowing you have raised them well. They had taught them to work hard, to treat people fairly, and to stand up for what was right. On a warm spring evening in 1896, the whole family gathered for dinner. Diego and Maria were there too, now part of the family in all but blood. The table was loud with conversation and laughter, multiple generations sharing food and stories. "Papa," Tommy said during a lull in conversation, "I have been thinking about expanding our operations further north. The McCready Ranch is for sale, and it would give us access to better water." Lucas considered his son's suggestion seriously. "What do you think, Magdalena?" Even after all these years, he still asked her opinion, still valued her input. "I think Tommy has a good eye for opportunity. But we should make sure we can manage the additional land without overextending ourselves." They discussed the pros and cons while Maria brought out dessert, and eventually decided to ride out and look at the property together. Later that night, after the children had gone to bed and the house was quiet, Magdalena and Lucas sat on the porch as they had done countless times over the years. "We have built a good life," Lucas said, taking her hand. "We have," she agreed. "Sometimes I still cannot believe how far we have come from that night in the saloon. You never talk about it anymore, because it is not the most important part of our story. What matters is not how we started, but what we built together." Lucas pulled her close, and they sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars come out one by one. 20 years of marriage had taught them that love was not just passion and romance, though they still had plenty of both. Love was also sitting in silence and finding peace. Love was building something together day by day. Love was choosing each other over and over again. Catherine left for teacher's college that fall, tearful but determined. Magdalena understood that need for independence, that desire to make your own way in the world. She and Lucas visited her in San Francisco, and it was strange to see how much the city had grown and changed since Lucas had been there last. "You ever wish for city life?" he asked as they walked through the busy streets. "Never," she said firmly. "The ranch is home. It always will be." Tommy took over more and more of the daily operations as Lucas began to slow down. He was nearly 60 now, and though still strong, the years of hard work were catching up with him. But he was content to let his son step into leadership, proud to see the Morgan legacy continuing. James surprised everyone by announcing he wanted to study law. "The West is changing," he said. "We need people who understand both the old ways and the new laws. I want to help protect what we have built." Lucas could not have been more proud. His children were taking the foundation he and Magdalena had created and building their own dreams on top of it. One morning in early spring, Magdalena was working in the garden when a stranger rode up to the house. He was an older man, thin and weathered, and it took her a moment to recognize him. Lawrence Daniels looked like he had aged 50 years instead of 20. His hands shook and his eyes were yellow with sickness. "Magdalena," he said, his voice rough, "I know I have no right to be here." She stood slowly, dirt on her hands, her heart remarkably calm. "No, you do not. I am dying. The doctor says I have maybe a month. I wanted to see you one more time to tell you I am sorry. What I did, selling you like that, it has haunted me every day since." Magdalena studied the broken man before her. She could see the truth in his eyes, the genuine remorse. But she also knew that his apology was for his own peace, not hers. "I forgave you a long time ago, Lawrence. Not because you deserved it, but because holding on to that anger was hurting me more than it hurt you. But forgiveness does not mean forgetting. You sold me to settle a gambling debt. You valued money more than the girl your wife loved like a daughter. I know. I have had 20 years to regret it. The thing is, what you meant for harm turned into the greatest blessing of my life. Lucas Morgan gave me freedom and then gave me love. We built a life together that is richer and fuller than anything I could have imagined. So while I forgive you, I also do not need your apology. I am happy, and I have been happy for a very long time." Tears ran down Lawrence's weathered cheeks. "Your mother would be so proud of the woman you have become. I know she would." Magdalena reached into her pocket and pulled out some money. "Here, enough for a room in town and some meals. Die with dignity, Lawrence. That is all I can give you." He took the money with shaking hands. "Thank you. You are far kinder than I deserve. Maybe, but I learned a long time ago that kindness is not about what people deserve. It is about who we choose to be." She watched him ride away slowly, and when Lucas came out to find her, she turned into his embrace. "He came to apologize," she said. "Did it help? Not really. But it reminded me how lucky I am, how blessed we are." Lucas kissed the top of her head. "I am the lucky one. You chose me, chose this life when you could have taken that horse and ridden anywhere." "I chose love," she corrected. "And I would make the same choice every single day." The seasons turned, and Lawrence Daniels died alone in a boarding house in San Pedro. Magdalena attended the small funeral service because it felt like the right thing to do, closing that chapter of her life completely. Catherine came home from college, excited about her studies and full of ideas about teaching. She had met a young professor there, she admitted shyly, someone kind and intelligent who shared her passion for education. Bring him to meet us, Magdalena said. If he is important to you, we want to know him. The young man, David Patterson, visited that summer. He was nervous meeting Lucas, but he clearly adored Catherine and treated her with respect. By the end of the visit, even Lucas had to admit he was a good match for their daughter. Tommy proposed to Sarah Kimball, the daughter of a neighboring rancher. She was a capable horsewoman and a smart businesswoman, exactly the kind of partner Tommy needed. The wedding was held at the Morgan Ranch in the spring, a beautiful celebration that had people talking for months. James finished his legal studies and opened a practice in town, representing ranchers and farmers in land disputes and water rights cases. He was good at it, fair and honest, building a reputation for integrity. On their 25th anniversary, Magdalena and Lucas renewed their vows in the same church where they had married. Their children stood as witnesses this time, and their first grandchild, Tommy and Sarah's daughter Emma, gurgled happily in her mother's arms. 25 years, Lucas said in his vows, his voice thick with emotion. 25 years of waking up beside you, of building this life together. You are my heart, Magdalena. You are my home. And you are mine, she replied. You gave me freedom and then you gave me love. Every day with you has been a gift. The celebration afterward was huge, with friends and neighbors coming from all over the county. People danced and ate and shared stories about Lucas and Magdalena, about their generosity and kindness, about the way they had touched so many lives. As the sun set and the party continued, Magdalena and Lucas slipped away to their favorite spot overlooking the ranch. The land was golden in the fading light, peaceful and prosperous. We did it, Lucas said softly. We built something that will last. We did, Magdalena agreed. Not just the ranch, but a family, a legacy of love and hard work and treating people right. I am so proud of our children, of what they have become. They learned from the best, she said, leaning against him. They sat in comfortable silence as the stars began to appear, the same stars that had watched over them that first night when he brought her to the ranch. So much had changed since then, but the fundamental truth remained the same. They had chosen each other, and they had built something beautiful together. The years rolled on gently. More grandchildren arrived, filling the ranch house with laughter and chaos. Lucas slowed down further, content to advise rather than direct, watching his son run the ranch with skill and wisdom. Magdalena kept busy with her grandchildren and her community work, still helping women who needed a hand up. On a warm autumn evening in 1902, Lucas had a stroke while riding the ranch. Tommy found him and brought him home quickly, and the doctor came from town. He survived but was weakened, his left side never quite recovering. Magdalena nursed him carefully, never leaving his side for long. They moved their bedroom downstairs to make things easier, and she learned to help him with things he could no longer do himself. I am sorry, he said one day, frustrated by his limitations. For what? For being human. For getting older. Lucas Morgan, you have given me 26 years of love and partnership. A few months of helping you does not change that. I wanted to grow old with you, not burden you. You are not a burden. You are my husband, my love, my best friend. For better or for worse, remember. We said those words, and I meant them. He took her hand with his good one, tears in his eyes. I love you so much, and I love you, always. Lucas regained some strength over the winter, enough to walk with a cane and enjoy sitting on the porch watching the ranch operate. He could not ride anymore, which hurt him, but he found joy in his grandchildren and in watching the legacy he had built continue to flourish. On their 27th anniversary, Magdalena made his favorite meal and they ate together on the porch, watching the sunset. No regrets, he asked. Not a single one. You. Only that I do not have another 27 years to give you. Then we will make the most of what we have, she said firmly. Lucas lived for another 3 years, gradually weakening but never losing his sharp mind or his gentle humor. He saw Tommy and Sarah have 3 children, saw Catherine and David have 2, saw James get married to a brilliant young lawyer named Helena. He held his grandchildren and told them stories about building the ranch, about the importance of integrity and hard work. On a spring morning in 1905, with wildflowers blooming across the hills, Lucas passed away peacefully in his sleep, Magdalena's hand in his. The funeral was attended by hundreds of people, testament to the man he had been and the lives he had touched. Magdalena stood strong through it all, supported by her children and grandchildren, accepting condolences with grace. That night, alone in the house that was too quiet without him, she let herself cry. Not just tears of grief, but tears of gratitude for every moment they had shared, every laugh and kiss and quiet evening together. She found the letter on his dresser the next morning, written in his shaky handwriting. "My dearest Magdalena," it read. "If you are reading this, I am gone, but I want you to know that every moment with you was a blessing. You transformed my life in ways I cannot fully express. You took a lonely rancher and made him the richest man in the world, not in money but in love. Thank you for choosing me all those years ago. Thank you for building this life with me. Live well, my love. Laugh with our grandchildren. Watch the sunsets we loved so much. And know that wherever I am, I will be watching over you and waiting for the day we are together again. Yours always and forever, Lucas." She held the letter to her heart and cried until there were no tears left. But Magdalena Morgan was not a woman who gave up or gave in. She had survived being sold to settle a debt. She had built a ranch and raised a family. She had learned long ago that life kept moving forward, and you had to move with it. She stayed active in the ranch, not running it, but offering advice and wisdom when asked. She spent time with her grandchildren, telling them stories about their grandfather, making sure they knew the kind of man he had been. She continued her community work, helping women and families in need. She became known as a pillar of the community, someone people turned to for advice and support. On the 5-year anniversary of Lucas's death, Tommy asked her to come out to a spot near where Lucas had proposed all those years ago. The whole family was there, and they unveiled a beautiful stone marker. Here stood Lucas Morgan, 1842–1905. A man of integrity, a devoted husband, a loving father, and a friend to all who knew him. He built not just a ranch but a legacy of honor and love. Beneath that, they had added, "And here stands Magdalena Everett Morgan, his beloved wife, who chose freedom and found love, and who continues his legacy of kindness and strength." Magdalena cried, but they were tears of joy. "It is beautiful, thank you." "Thank you, Mama," Tommy said, hugging her, "for everything you and Papa built, for the example you set for all of us." Magdalena lived for another 15 years, watching her grandchildren grow and her great-grandchildren arrive. She stayed sharp and active until the very end, a force of nature who commanded respect and affection in equal measure. On a summer evening in 1920, at the age of 64, Magdalena passed away peacefully, surrounded by her family. Her last words were simple: "Tell Lucas I am coming home." They buried her next to Lucas on the hill overlooking the ranch, their stones side by side as they had been in life. The Morgan Ranch continued to prosper under Tommy's management and eventually passed to his children. But the true legacy was not the land or the cattle. It was the lesson that Lucas and Magdalena had taught through their lives. That freedom is precious, that love is a choice you make every day, and that treating people with dignity and respect is the foundation of everything worthwhile. Years later, Emma Morgan, Tommy's daughter, would write a book about her grandparents' love story. She told the tale of how Magdalena had been sold to settle a bet, how Lucas had won her and immediately set her free, and how that freedom had led to a love that transformed both their lives. The book ended with the words Lucas had spoken that first night. "Now you are free to make your own choices." And Magdalena's response, though it came weeks later, was just as powerful. "I choose you. I choose this life. I choose love." It was a simple story in many ways, but it captured something essential about the human spirit, about the power of kindness to transform lives, about the courage it takes to let someone be free, and about the magic that happens when someone freely chooses to love you back. The Morgan Ranch still stands today, run by the fifth generation of the family. In the main house, carefully preserved, are Lucas's letter to Magdalena and her response, written years later after his death. "My darling Lucas, you gave me the greatest gift anyone can give, the gift of choice. And every single day I chose you. I would do it again 1,000 times over. Wait for me. I am coming home. Forever yours, Magdalena." Their story became legend in San Luis Obispo County, a reminder that even in the roughest times and places, love and decency could flourish. That a man could choose honor over opportunity. That a woman could choose love over fear. And that together, two people could build something that would last for generations. The town of San Pedro grew and changed over the years, but old-timers still told the story of the card game in the Silver Spur Saloon, the rancher who freed a woman he won, and the love story that grew from that moment of unexpected kindness. It was a story about the Wild West, but more than that, it was a story about the best of what people could be. About choosing right when wrong would be easier. About offering freedom when you could take advantage. About building love on a foundation of respect and choice. And every time someone told the story, they ended it the same way. He won her, then set her free, and she chose to stay. Because in the end, that was what mattered most, not the circumstances that brought them together, but the choices they made afterward. The choice to treat each other with dignity. The choice to build something together. The choice to love every single day through good times and hard times until death parted them. And even then, their love lived on in the land they had nurtured, the children they had raised, and the legacy they had built together. A legacy that said love is always a choice, and the best choices are the ones made freely, with an open heart and a willing soul. That was the true story of Lucas Morgan and Magdalena Everett. And it was a story worth telling, worth remembering, worth passing down through the generations as a testament to what love can be when two people choose each other, freely and completely, and build a life together one day at a time.